Welcome back to the UK property market stat show week 30. Can you believe we've been doing these for 30 weeks? And this is a show for estate agents and letting agents and anyone who wants to know what's really happening in the UK property market. For those of you who have not watched the UK property market stat show, the show is a show where each week I'll get a special guest. This week it's James Forrester. We'll come to him in a second. And we look and analyse at what's happening in the UK property market right here, right now. Now, the vast majority of stats that are out there in the UK, your land registry figures, are dealing with sales that completed 3 or 4 months ago. And as I don't know if you're aware, but it takes on average 19 weeks for a property to complete from sale agreed. So the information that you're looking on the land registry is for sales that were agreed literally last autumn. Your details from your Halifax and your nationwide data sources and indexes, they're dealing with sales that were agreed around January, February time, and mortgage offers coming out literally 3 or probably about even 6, 8 weeks ago. But we're dealing with right here and right now, as Fatboy Sim says. And by looking at what's happening with the number of properties that are coming on the market, the number of properties that are being reduced, the number of properties that are being sold, the number of sales that are falling through, we know months and months and months in advance where the trends are going to go in this UK property market. Today, I'm joined by James Forrester, who is pretty big in the game when it comes to the property market. He's always out there being quoted in the national and regional presses about what's happening in the property market. This is his second time on the UK property market stats show, and he did such a fantastic job last time. We invited him back. James, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Great to be back on.
Lovely. It doesn't look like you're in the UK at the moment, unless
I've heard the weather's pretty terrible back home. I'm in sunny Spain at the moment, so yeah, as you know me, I'm a workaholic, so I'll still jump on it while I'm on holiday.
Good stuff. Good stuff. James, we're dealing with week 30, which is, just for the benefit of everyone, is Monday the 24th of July all the way through till Sunday the 30th of July inclusive. Obviously that week 30 will fall differently in different years, but in parts of this show we compare this standalone week against the other standalone weeks, and we also look at year-to-date figures as well. So James, I think what we should do is let's stop rambling and let's jump straight in.
How's straight
that?
In.
So this week we're starting off as always with listings, because it is very by nature and natural that we start at the top, where we look at the supply of properties. Remember, like all economic things, it's all about supply and demand. Okay, it's interesting that in 2008, the number of properties that came on the market between back end of 07 and early 08, the number of properties that were on the market, the stock of properties, nearly doubled in 6 months. So what happened is too much, as every GCSE year 9 student would know, if you have too much of something and not enough demand, the price goes down. That's what affects house prices, supply and demand, good old fashioned economics. And we're starting with listings, okay? So this week we have listed as a country 32,232 properties. We'll just have a look at the graphs and then we can discuss them at length. The year-to-date figures in terms of the number of properties that come on the market so far this year, just under 1 million. And again, compared to other years to date, they're all looking very similar, apart from 2020, where, as I said, obviously we had 2 months away from the market. Average price of a property coming on the market is 416,500. And the number of properties that have come on the market, like we said, 32,000, that is how it compares to the rest of week 30s. So let's start from the top. Thoughts on this, James?
Pretty much where we expected it to go, really. We're back to the normal market. That's where we should be. This is, if you're looking at 217, 218, this is exactly where the market was, and you have to roll up your sleeves and win listings, from that. You can see the little jumps there, obviously coming through, but, obviously there was some interesting incentives, let's put it that way. So it was worth getting your property on the market when you've got some good incentives out there.
Yeah.
Obviously it is slightly falling from that, but it's still
strong. But if you look, I mean, we're going into the summer months when it does naturally fall.
Because everyone's on holiday like me.
Yeah. Lucky swine. And again, I think what's interesting to note is that if we compare ourselves to 19, 18 and 17, we have a slow start. Then for a couple of months, as you can see this in the week between week 3 and week 11, it's pretty steady. We then go on the roller coaster of Easter and May bank holidays. Obviously, this year we had the coronation as well, and now we're just back into a normal market when it comes to listings. Again, year to date, just under 1 million houses that come on the market. Interestingly, there are 22 million properties that are privately owned in the UK. If memory serves well, there might be a few more, a few 100,000 on top, but near as damn it, that's where it is. The average price of a property coming on the market, 416,000. Last week, 421. Last week before that, 436, 431, 443, 442. I'm mixing my numbers up. Again, pretty stable in terms of the type of properties that and the average price coming on the market. We will be looking at the regional breakdown in a second. And again,
I think and just to say, Chris, I think what's interesting on that as well is especially where we are now today, and a lot of estate agents do ask, I get messages asking, for, my advice, what am I thinking, is people who want to sell now will sell, and they will sell at what their property is worth today. We're not in a growing market now, so you can't add that 30, 50,000 on top because you're likely to get someone who needs it and will just bid it in an upward trend. So we are seeing some really good figures of exactly where the market should be right now today.
For me, it's quite boring and vanilla, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's not all doom and gloom as like many others like to suggest.
I couldn't possibly confirm or deny anyone who is a doom and gloom merchant. This is really important, ladies and gentlemen who are watching the show, is this. One of the first signs of a property market that is getting challenging is if everybody dumps their houses on the market, okay? So if that pink line decides to go like a rocket upwards, that is our first sign of a problem, okay?
Yep.
Now, again, everyone, certain commentators were commenting that, that by this time this year, everyone would be dumping their properties on the market. Well, we haven't seen it yet, have we? Now, that's not to say it won't happen. And we don't specifically talk about house prices in this. We did talk about it last week, mind you, but we don't specifically talk about house prices. But this is what will affect house prices.
It's true. I think you're making a good point there, Chris, because I think the key thing is stock. That's what it comes down to for estate agents. Their life is all about stock. But actually, if you had a downward trend, estate agents actually prosper better because, of course, prices would be cheaper. So, of course, you can sell more because they're more affordable in that way. But what you have to look at now, it's 2023. It's very different to, say, 2008, 2009. Which obviously we can't see here, but I think it's worth reminding people there's a bit of a generation gap of what we've gone through previously. And I think one of the big things here is people will put their market on now as if they need to move, and that might be for job relocation, schooling. They might be downsizing. We have an old population now, especially in England and Wales, and people now might be releasing that equity in their property, downsizing, and actually using it to go and enjoy themselves, go on nice cruises, maybe pay for medical bills, want to go private, don't want to be on NHS waiting lists. So, when we're looking at this at the moment, 32,500 for week 31 that we're on now. It's very good, from that. It's still showing that we have a strong market. And yes, we don't know the future. We don't know what's going to happen. But as you say, trends typically seem to always come true.
And what are your thoughts with regard to if we did have house price drops? Should vendors be afraid of that?
Not necessarily, because I think what we've had over the last couple of years is.
Or should estate agents be worried? Well, both. What do you think?
Well, estate agents should tell the truth and advise their clients correctly is number one on that, and base it on evidence. Show what's going on in the market right now today. On this, yes, there are still agents out there. Unfortunately, there's a small percentage that will tell the client what they want to hear just to win the listing, and that's not the way it should be. So they need to be basing it on the evidence. What is the price per square foot in the areas? What they should be really achieving for, not on what they may think it's worth at an inflated price. You can do that in an upward trend market. So if you've got prices going up, so for example, through 2020 to 21, we saw prices increasing and no one knew what was going on. It was a crazy time, but you could have stuck an extra £50,000 in a property price and the chances are someone would have bought it because they were worried they wouldn't find anywhere else because there was a lack of stock on the market. Your figures just showed that what came on in 2020 was one of the lowest in the last sort of 7 or 8 years. So people were scared and were prepared to pay what they had to get, to get not probably not to get really on the ladder, but to secure the property that they needed in an area that they wanted to be at. So I'm still very confident in the area. I just think all we're doing is going through an adjustment. We're starting to plateau out, which is what I've been saying all year, is that we will start to plateau out towards the back end, and then going forward is going to be the interesting time. I don't have the crystal ball. If I did, I'd have won the Euro lottery many times over and over. But I'm pretty confident that we will start to see that little tick increasing. I build properties as well for a living, so it's a tough time at the moment for building because obviously construction costs are up, but then there's a lot of red tape through the councils to get you through developments through planning, etc, etc. But there's a lack of shortage, and people will say you can't use the supply and demand, you can't use supply and demand, but unfortunately that's how our world works.
That is how our world works. I mean, I know you're aware, but some of our viewers might not, but my daytime job is that I'm a ghostwriter for estate and letting agents, writing articles out their local property market. And the article that I'm publishing this week is the 14 reasons why you shouldn't fear house prices. And, one of the 14 is that 2023 is not like 2008. A lot of people have built in a huge amount of equity in their properties compared to 2008. A lot of people, vast majority, 17 out of 20 people are on a fixed rate mortgage, so therefore it's not going to hit it like a tsunami straight away. The banks are prepared to lend money as well, and everyone has been stress tested up to 6.5. Now, of course, the stress testing didn't allow for inflation with food and things like that. But again, everyone has to cut their cloth accordingly, and it might mean you have to get rid of the Sky package, or having a new phone next year, or going on holiday. But I think people realise when you've built up so much equity that you're going to keep onto your house, come what may. And again, here's an interesting stat. If you roll the clock back, James, a year, the average first-time buyer was taking a mortgage out with 29% of their household income going on the mortgage. Now, today, it's 39%. So let's all run around like headless chickens going, end of the world. Okay.
Yeah. And I think it's a good one for first-time buyers, Chris. I was just going to say, for first-time buyers, if you actually look at the market, anything up to, and obviously it all comes down to regional here, but if you've got first-time buyer market really going up to the sort of £300,000 mark, yes, their mortgage would have increased, but it's not increased dramatically.
Right. Well, let me leave you this. Let's leave you this thought, okay? Because everyone's quoting this stuff about average house prices versus average income. Okay. I don't think that's particularly very good measure. I think just how much, the simple fact is this, how much of your take-home pay do you have to pay on a mortgage? Yeah, because that's really what it comes down to in this world. And the bottom line is this. In 1998, it was 48.7%. We have got interest rates, I've got to go much, much higher. They've got to go up to 8, 9, 10% before we get to that sort of level. Okay, so let's just, I don't know about you, James, because I know you're in the press all the time, but I send these pretty damn good news stuff to the newspapers and no one publishes it. As soon as you give them something that's a little bit doomy gloomy, they're on it like a tramp on chips.
Well, as you know, bad news sells, Chris. Bad news sells.
Oh, don't get me wound about that. But that's why estate and letting agents, it's your responsibility to become the voice of your local property market and tell people exactly what is happening. And do remember that you can use these stats on your appointments. Now, if you go to my YouTube channel, in the description, you can look at all the stats. There's graphs galore. I actually don't use them on social media, but I'm happy for you to use them personally. If you want to use them out on out on your valuations, please feel free to do so. Okay, should we carry on? Let's get back. We're going to get off my soapbox now, James, and let's get back on to price changes.
Let's get into the nitty gritty.
Price changes. So we're at 21,679 last week, 23, week before 24, 23, 22. So shows that agents are shifting their stock. This is working out. They are reducing approximately 12 to 13% of their stock per month. Is that enough?
I think there's been a big change recently. I think about 6-7 weeks ago, I think a lot of estate agents were sort of starting to look and just maybe starting to worry a little bit. Inquiry levels dropped dramatically. on this. Now, obviously, that comes down to, unfortunately, interest rates. As soon as the Bank of England decides to increase them, the banks don't know where to set the rates going forward, especially within the 2-year ones. But a lot of people think too short term in property. If you're moving, and this has always been my advice, if you have to move, and this is the key thing, if you have to move because it's a job relocation, it's schooling, whatever the case may be, you've got to look at it. If you think the rate's dramatically going to drop in the next couple of years, then go on a 2-year one. You can know what you're going to pay, then you take the risk on that. If you're not too sure, you don't know where it's going to be, and you look at a 5-year one, which actually the rates on the 5-year at the moment are not a million miles away from where they were a year ago. If you were trying to get a 5-year, they haven't jumped that much altogether. Then you would do that and you would secure it. You know where you're going to be for the next 5 years.
Yeah, and humans don't like uncertainty, do they?
No, well, neither do lenders. So the two go hand in hand. But that's the difference. You've got to go off today's market. And that's one thing I say to anyone buying a property when they go, I'm going to wait. Well, what are you waiting for? If you're going to be waiting to what the rates were back in 2017, 18, 19, 2020, for example, as well, then it's a bit like a sale. You had a chance to get it, you didn't get it. It then goes back to normal prices. And this is what's happening within the property market to circle. Now, your worry, of course, is if you keep waiting, and a lot of people are saying they're going to wait. That's especially in newspapers at the moment and all the media, that everyone's waiting. Well, once you decide to start buying, because if rates have come down, might be some incentives, we're getting to an election season soon, so we're all going to see the fun and games start again, then guess what will happen to prices when you've got a load of demand again with very little stock? The price rise will just slightly start to increase.
Oh, you can't judge the bottom of the market. You don't know the bottom until you've gone through it.
No,
and again, it's like waiting for the next telly. We all say, oh yeah, we're going to wait for the next telly. But just as you're waiting for the next telly to come out, the next telly's been announced. Yeah. And eventually you'll be in your 40s and 50s and you'll be still waiting. Sometimes you've got to get yourself in there. And again, that's what you should be doing as estate agents. Is your job is not just there to sell houses. It's to look at what Purple Bricks did. Local, property experts. Come on, guys. This is what. Anyway, let's move on and go back to sales. And this is gross sales. And this week we have sold 21,440. Week before 21,700, 21,600, 21 the week before. So yeah, it's bumbling along quite averagely there, isn't it? That's not end of the world, is it?
No, it's not end of the world. And look, there is going to be dropouts. So, people watching this might be thinking, oh yeah, but there's dropouts happening.
Well, we're going to look at the dropouts.
We're going to get onto that. Okay. Yeah, look, I think that's fine for where we are for week 30 coming into week 31. It's where we expect it to be. Look, conveyancers are on holiday, so things will be paused. I'll expect to see that jump again, in September. So I can't remember whether that be week 35, well, maybe week 37, give or take. We'll expect that to jump. So I'll be interested to see that when you do that one in week 37.
Good stuff, mate. Cumulative year to date, we're just on 2/3 gross sales, which again, if we are comparing ourselves to 21 and 22, you'll just be beating yourself up. They were exceptional years. Yep. And again, gross sales from 2020 catching up. And again, we'll come and look at 2020 net sales, which will obviously has been taken into account through gross sales minus fall throughs, which we'll come into in a second. That's going to catch up soon, which I think is fascinating. And now the average price of a property being sold this week, 353,838. Last week, 355, week before 361, week before 363. Now, there seems to be a tonality there that the average price of a property coming on the market is 420 to 440. In fact, we'll just have a quick look at the stats now. Hold on a second. Here we go. So there is a bit of a difference between the percentage difference, but as I said, I have learned that nothing to worry about too much as long as that gap doesn't get particularly big. The gap this week is 17.7%. That's the difference between 353 and 416. It's where earlier in the year that got to mid-20s, and that's when there's a disparity between what's coming on the market and what's selling. And we do have those stats regionally based, ladies and gentlemen, that you can watch if you want. Let's get back to sales. They're just average. But let's move on. And that's the year. That is the year standalone week in terms of sales. Look how 2020 rebounded. Again, from when you were, literally, if you go back to the weeks that during lockdown we were selling less than 1,000 houses across the country in a week. Let's do four. So
You have to remember now in 2020, if I might be wrong here, but I think if we checked, I bet you this is where the big stamp duty started to come into force as well, where you could buy up to 500,000 at 15,000. 15,000.
it was around July time, so I think you're bang on there. Let's have a look at fall throughs, because it doesn't matter if you sell them, you've got to get them.
And let's be honest, that was the best time to sell, really, or buy a property. Was then record low interest rates, so many incentives to buy. If you're a key worker, you got discount off from the house builders as well. So that was the big one. The uncertainty, of course, was your job. And that was a bit like 2008. And that's what people have to remember. We're not going through that now. The job market is still got record employment. You know, unemployment, you know, it's at record lows still.
Yeah,
And
I mean, yeah, unemployment at the moment is around 3.6%, which is really, really low. And I've been doing some stats for my clients, and in some locations it's 1 point something. You know,
even in the estate agency world, like all the viewers watching this, we're fighting for good staff at the moment. You know, and we're having to pay more to get good staff. You know, because you want to pay your staff right, obviously, to make sure that they're advising the clients right as well, buyers or sellers.
Okay, so fall throughs is something that's been hot topic in the last few weeks, and for the last the average number of fall throughs that have been taken place in the 5 weeks before was an average of 6,447. Yeah, I mean, let's just bring that back. Hold on.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen, isn't it, Chris? You know, I've seen it through my own agency.
Yeah, but it's dropping.
Yeah, it is dropping. But it's, you know, you're going to get it. You get it as part of the business anyway. You know, we're all used to it. I think at the moment, no, it's a little bit out of estate agents' control. I would say most of the drop throughs will be from, because conveyancing takes so damn long at the moment to get through, and that's a big part of it. And I'm sorry, conveyancers might then start to jump on your social media here and start to slate me for this, but it's far too long. You know, 4 or 5 months to complete on a sale is ridiculous. And between that, if there's an interest rate change, and the lender can find any way out to save themselves money, because it depends on what they've done, then they're going to cancel the mortgage, then your sales dropped. You know, it's fallen through.
Yeah,
you know,
I'm hearing some stories, especially from the northwest, where mortgage offers are running out, and my advice to you, every estate agent, is make sure that you put on the memorandum of sale that when the mortgage offer runs out, and you actually, instead of ringing up a solicitor saying, "Where are we?" remind everyone in the chain. And if you're not doing it, why don't you pick the phone up to the agents down the chain? So just reminding you, my first time buyer's mortgage offer runs out in three months' time.
Yeah, I think what we've started advising from that, and it might help some other estate agents, is you've got to pay more for your legal costs to go with better firms who can actually do it. You know, yes, look, we all want to pay cheap. You know, not many people want to pay, and unfortunately, we're in an industry that no one wants to pay high fees. No one wants to pay conveyancer high fees. They all want to pay the lowest for the biggest asset they'll probably, or the most expensive asset they'll own. But it does a lot of disjustice. You know, so sometimes you are better off paying more to make sure it will get done, and you're not just a number in a chain. You've actually got, when an estate agent, and I'm sure many people watching this will know, when you ring up for your updates and you're doing your sales progression, to chase up, and you just get told, "We'll get back to you when we've got an update," that's not acceptable, you know, anymore. You need firm facts. You need to know that everyone is working to the same speed to get the job done, which is to give you, that buyer, the keys to the house that they want to move into, and the seller can move on to their new life and a new chapter wherever they're going.
Bang on. Let's finish off sell fall throughs, and this is the percentage, which I think is actually a more important stat than the actual numbers. Ignoring that blip at Christmas, because the sales are low and the set fall through rates, it just really does screw the figures up. So you can kind of ignore that blip. You can quite clearly see here that back in the autumn, fall through rates were around the early 40s. The average for the whole quarter was 38 point something percent. And as I said, we kind of got used to around the 20% mark. And what was interesting is this: it's almost like the straw that breaks the camel's back. Agents are kind of expect around, I've got used to 20%. Now, this is something I was talking to an estate agent. every estate agent says 1 in 3 house sales will fall through. We are at less than 1 in 3. We're at 29%, and people are going, ah.
Yeah.
And I think, well, is that because of our perception? Our perception is that we've been at 20 and we're kind of used to the 1 in 5 and not the 1 in 3, or is it just because we're a bit more sensitive about it?
I think we're more. I think it's a bit of both. I think the sensitivity is there now because obviously every day there's going to be something in the media about the housing market. So I think it's there anyway. So nothing to really worry about. It's pretty normal for where we need to be. Look, at the end of it, as agents, we obviously would love it to be 0, but we're not all perfect. So it's all about qualifying the buyers, making sure. It's just making sure you can get that chain through as much as possible. It's the one thing I don't like within the industry is chain sales. Not many other countries go through this. I'm currently sat in Spain. They don't do chain sales here. There's no such thing, on this. There needs to be something. I think if anyone's watching this and they can find that gap, then I think there'll be happy people overnight, because that's one thing that could change the property market in the UK pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of not sticking plaster solutions, but one thing that outsourced sales progression will get your sales down in a lot of cases to nearer 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge believer in reservation agreements, which again, if someone's on the fence a little bit, because how many times has someone fallen out because their solicitor never got back to them and the wife's having a go, so you go, I'm pulling out. When in reality, if you've got a couple of grand on the line, that just makes you think. So yeah.
It's interesting you say that, Chris. Apologies for the background noise. The tractor's just pulled up. I'm in a motorhome traveling Spain, so I expect a little bit of background noise where I am. But it's interesting you say that, because as for my agency, and I'm obviously not going to promote it out because it's not the show, but we've just put that in place now. Going forward is reservation fees. I've seen another agent do it who I have a good relationship with in a different area. I've asked them, and like they've said, like they said to me, it's very simple. Like, James, you have a big new build background. And I went, yeah. They went, every sale you will do, I went, we take a reservation fee, 100% we do. It's locked in straight away. And I went, why are we not doing that in the secondhand market? Like you've just said, if people at the moment, we're in a buyer's market, so you could go and have a look. You're a bit worried. There's a lack of stock out there. For agents in general, if you looked at the number of agents in England and Wales to the amount of properties coming on, there's not a lot of stock per agent. Let's put it that way. The difference is your buyer could look at it and go, well, that'll do at the moment. I'll take it. They go 2 months down the line, everything's still going. We've shelled out all the money for marketing. You're running around, headless chickens to make sure that everyone's happy. And then on the 3rd month, they go, oh, the house on the streets that we've really wanted's popped up. You know what? We'll go off there. The conveyancing people very likely will just move their fees over. They're not going to lose the business. But as agents, we do lose the business. Now, if you had a reservation fee in there, they would think twice about that. Now, there has to be caveats in that. A lot of things in regards to if anything comes up on the survey, something should have been disclosed that wasn't disclosed on the marketing material, etc. You can find that out very easily what to put in place. But I do think they should come in thick and fast. And I do agree with you, what you've said. It needs to be something half decent to, and if you're a buy, to lock them in. And if you're serious, then why would you not pay it?
Bang on, mate. Absolutely bang on. Let's just whiz through these national figures. So the 7-year weekly average, that's not the average for week 30, that's the average for all 7 years every week, is a fall through rate of 24.28%. That surprises a lot of people. And I said this week we are at 27%. Last week we've been running around the 30%, so that's good. Let's move on. So that's the number of fall throughs, 5,952. I don't know why that, oh, hold on, there we go. Let's move on to net sales. So this is gross sales in the week, less fall throughs. And we are running at 92.3% of the 17, 18 and 19 average. So you can see here, this is where the things took off, went back, and then she took off with the stamp duty. And the pink line is this year. The white dots are 17, 18 and 19 average. And a cumulative year to date, 507,500 net sales, which means we are 92% of 17, 18 and 19. Thoughts on net sales?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? As you say, we can certainly see that we're slightly down on that, but not unexpected, I think, with the news and what's been going through. You know, I think the constant interest rate increases will have an effect on this naturally. But we're sort of peaking. Inflation's starting to come down now. I think people are getting used to interest rates are going to be staying. They're not going to be going down to 1-2%, you know, on this. So, you know, I look, I've always looked at, I know it's not on the screen, but I always base my figures off 2008. That's when people had to sell. You were losing your jobs, you know, you were forced to sell. And net sales, I think, over the whole of the year of 08, 09, if you were looking at it, which was the worst year in the market, was around the 700,000 mark, give or
Yeah,
take.
it was just very late 600s. I'm calling it 885 for the
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, so and that's my benchmark. That's what I go off. You know, if it's under that, then we should be panicking. And I think everyone would be panicking on there. But if you look at that now, 507,000 from where we are, I've noticed an increase dramatically. Sales agreed going forward. I think a lot of them will not fall through. Obviously, I'm pessimistic, so there's got to be a little bit, you know, in there. But I think, yeah, I think you're right. I think we'll probably end up around about 830, 840, give or take, myself. And I think that's going to be a great year with what we're going through. I think I think that'll be a great year overall. And actually, it's a bit more enjoyable because I think for agents watching this, you've got to look at it. We've had an easy couple of years, you know, from that in
We've been
2020.
order takers, haven't we?
Yeah,
You
if
know,
you go back to your screen a second there, Chris, if you don't mind, please.
which one? The
The one
next
with the one with your arrow, that one. So if you look there where it dropped dramatically, here, that was when wine sales took off dramatically as every estate agent was worried about losing their business because all their sales literally were falling through completely, and they were thinking they're going to lose their business on it. And if you just look at the difference in the last few years, we've had it quite easy. You know, you haven't had to do a lot. You know, we did all, if you're in 2020, everyone started doing a lot of blogging, video work, etc., etc. Some of it's carried on, some of it's stopped. Agents have done their own different things. But now you've got to roll up your sleeves. But isn't it enjoyable now that you can actually have that clients actually want to have honest conversations with you now? They're actually asking you, what's the market like? And they want to listen to what's the market like. It's not like, oh yeah, I'll listen to you, but add an extra 50 grand on my price, will you? Because that's what I believe it's worth. They actually now do want to listen. Not everybody. There is some people who unfortunately are still in cuckoo land on what their property prices are worth, unfortunately. But the serious sellers understand the market. And as long as you're backing it up with evidence, things like this are golden to be showing what the market's like. So if someone's on the fence about selling and they're not too sure because they're worried about it, just show them the stats. The stats don't lie, you know, and then your job will make it a lot easier for them.
In fact, you could say that newspapers are doing us a little bit of good sorting out the wheat from the chaff. Interesting, I just had a look whilst you were talking about that. The fall through rate in 2020 for the first after was around 50 to early 50%, which is up here, and it was constant. So
Yeah.
just take that with a not with a pinch of salt, but just be aware of that.
I remember that time very well.
Okay, so all the what we're about to whiz through very quickly the regional stuff. Red is bad, green is good. Interestingly, you'll notice that an awful lot, the tonality, that everything goes up and down at the same sort of rates. These are available for your own personal benefit on YouTube. Go to YouTube, look at the description of the video, and there's a link down the bottom, and you can download them. And I'm happy for you to use them, not on your social media, but I'm happy for you to use them in your valuations and for the purposes of comparing yourself with your previous years on your CRMs. So we're just gonna so you can quite clearly see that nationally fall throughs have been going up, hence the more reds. The price changes, green is good, so again price changes going up. Interestingly, the number of listings that were quite high and low, but this is the up and down of the Easter and bank holiday season. So if you average those out, they do come in at the same sort of level around early 32,000. Let's go and have a whiz through the regional stuff, and we start off with the East Midlands, and notice how everything is roughly the same. So if you could literally put your hand over the different regions and they all have the same tonality. It's all red, it's all up and down at the same sort of levels. As I said, we're not going to spend too much time here because we could have a geek fest, and James needs to get back to his sangria. Lucky swine.
I want to jump back in the pool.
And I'm glad that you put your polo top on and not your string vest that you did have on before you switched on. And again, there's lots of stats here that you can have a look. I mean, again, fall throughs seem to be the hot topic at the moment, and as you can quite clearly see, that the fall through rates dropped last week in London. Fall through rates still quite high in outer London, but again, have you noticed here that the fall through rates are constantly lower in the north than they are the south? Do you notice that? So yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah, it might obviously house prices typically in the north are cheaper, as it's seen. There will be pockets that obviously are expensive areas, but overall, in the north you typically have a lower price point as well. And I think with the wage inflation that obviously that's been kicking in slightly, I think that will have an effect to stop dropout rates. Not stop them, but make them less.
But the fact that the further south you go, the fall through rate increases.
Yeah, I think so, because I think obviously it's like anything, isn't it? When you're in it's not a difficult market. You just got to roll up your sleeves. I think when you're in a more challenging market, let's put it that way, then it's usually the top end prices seem to suffer a little bit more, because the people who can afford the houses, they start to think slightly different. Where, as you say, if you're picking up a house, £300,000, 350, then you're still going to go ahead of it, because when you do look at the mortgage rates, yes, it's increased. We're all having the burden. I'm having it with my own mortgage, and you've got to pay for it. But you have to cut things, like you said, cut the cloth accordingly. You have to cut certain things out. Only when I disagree with you, I don't think you should cut out holidays, because I still think you need a break. But I do agree. Do you have to have Amazon Prime? Do you have to have Netflix? Do you have to have the latest Nike trainers? And I know people might be saying, "Oh, that sounds ridiculous," but there's a generation gap here. And I think a lot of people are speaking to this generation at the moment, they're so used to the interest rates being low, and they're not used to what they've used to be. I think also at the other end of the scale is people are not downsizing quick enough, if that makes, your step fourers, step fivers, to get the equity out the property, to do that, and they're sort of sitting tight because they want to get the more money out the property, because of course that's their retirement fund going forward. And I think that's a market that needs unlocked at the moment, and we're sort of a bit not stagnant on it, but it has slowed down a little bit more than what we used to.
It's interesting. I'm presently writing an article that proves that if you wait for house prices to come back to get an extra 100 grand, it will actually end up costing you at least 200 grand to get the 100 grand back. So
yeah, that doesn't shock me.
Watch out for that, my clients. That's coming out in a few weeks' time. Right. Okay. So we've done the national stuff. The regional stuff we've always whizzed through, which we always do. Again, you can download and compare your office, where your office is compared regionally with the stats you can download for free. Shall we now move on and look at we always end the show on focusing on a town or a city. And this week we're going to Shrewsbury.
Shrewsbury.
Do you know it? Do you know it?
Shrewsbury, not Shrewsbury. There's a debate for you. That could go on all day long.
Bloody well, couldn't it?
I do know it. I do know it. It's a lovely town in Shropshire. Obviously, I don't operate there, and as you know, to come on here and do this, you can't operate in the areas where you cover. But yeah, I think it's a market I've looked at a lot myself, because I've always thought about moving to this area, because I do think it's a lovely part of the world.
Now, as we all know, and everyone takes the piss out of me on this one, but the software that we've used so far for the rest of the show, and the software for this, is the 20EA platform called the Insight platform. This is available to estate agents. 20EA have lots of different packages. This is just one of them, called Insight. 20EA are part of the 20CI group, which use a lot of data for an awful lot of companies around the UK and the rest of the world. They do not pay me to use to highlight it. They just give me the software free of charge. You can have this software yourself, up to, I believe, 3 postcodes you can have for free. So what I'm showing you now, you could have for your own town. And then if you want something more, then you do have to pay them some silver. But I believe the prices are very reasonable. I actually can't remember what the prices are, because I don't sell it. Do not mention my name, but this one I'm about to show you now is the Insights platform, which you can have access to if you contact 20EA, and you can use this, because I'll tell you here and now, mate, and I know you've looked at it before, there is gold in this software, especially if you are an estate agent looking to earn charge higher fees and prove that you're worth your money. Okay,
so absolutely, I'm actually currently speaking to them at the moment.
There you go. I should be on commission, but I'm not. Trust me. Right then, so we are starting off with we'll start off with, here we go, new instructions. So for the purposes of this, we are looking at S1, S2, S3, S4, and S5. So that is Shrewsbury, and the countryside around it, okay? And let's just remember that the average price of a property coming on the market is 341,000. We'll remember this because we're going to look at the upper quartile in a second. And we can quite clearly see that the number one agent here is Cooper Green Pooks. A great name that is. So let's have a look at what they've been doing, James. James, I'm just going to talk and you're going to jump in whenever you want to jump in, okay?
Yep.
No an agent or anything. So Cooper Green and Pooks, their market share has been hovering around 15%, as you can quite clearly see. Obviously had a bad month, but there you go, that was December, so we'll let them off on that one. And you can quite clearly see that their average price is 333,000 compared to the average. So obviously they are a middle of the road agent, and not necessarily been growing, but we'll delve into that a little bit in a second. Let's go and look at Holland Broadbridge, and they are at 325 compared to, so again, they are.
That was a big jump at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, okay, must have had a good month, probably did a deal on fees or something, who knows. Okay, we'll go and look at Miller Evans. Looks like they've been hovering around the 10 mark. That's quite spiky. God, what a great name this is. Zaza Johnson and Bath. Love that name. Looks like they're having a great July there. Well done, Zaza Johnson and Bath, for improving your market share there. So they've been hovering around the 8% mark, and their price is 266, which is quite a difference. So they must be dealing in the lower to mid quartile. Okay, let's go and look at Monks again. I don't know if you know any of these. Do you know? Let's do.
I'm aware of Monks. They're a good community agent in the area. They over the last few years, when they were doing a lot of the food festivals in the Shrewsbury Quarry Park, you would constantly see Monks there supporting the local community. So if they're watching this, keep up the good work, guys. I really do like your marketing that you're putting across. I do know the next ones, DB Roberts, but I won't comment on them because I have history with them. So I'm quite glad to see their stats. I don't mind saying that.
Okay, then. So they seem to be hovering around the 5%. Let's just have a quick look. Interestingly, look, here we
have
go.
A good reach. DB Roberts have a few offices across Shrewsbury. They've been there for a long time. Bill and Joe, they're lovely people. They've done it, but they've gone through changes like a lot of people. You know, obviously an old school estate agency coming into a modern world, where a few of the ones above there are quite modern agents. In other words, they haven't had to go through that change and getting used to it and mindset, etc. as well. But interesting.
Okay, so interestingly, looks like we've got three big players in Shrewsbury, and then another two. We've got Zaza Johnson and Bath and Monks. Almost, so we've got the championship, the premiership in the three there. Then we've got like two in the championship, and then the others. Interestingly, the town we were last week, it was like the top four agents took 45% of the market, but there were two huge ones, you know, both with knocking on the door of one had nearly 25% market share.
Yeah.
Again, we'll have a look at these.
The one thing I know about the Shrewsbury market, it's very competitive. Because the actual
don't give me that stuff. If I had a town, for every time, someone age said, "Well, my town's different." You're all pretty hard work.
They are, but if I opened the agency there, I'm not a million miles away from Shrewsbury, so I could easily go and jump and open an office there. It would take a long time to get up and running in that area. It's a very old school area. You know, it's a very older population. They've got new villages, new big urbanizations being Spanish now because I'm here. Urbanizations. They've got new big developments now arriving in the area from that. So I think there is a mindset change. And when you look at the S1 to S5, like S5 is a huge part of the countryside, you know, out there. So any of the agents that are covering the SY5, and if they're nailing it, they'll be doing really well on their fees. I can assure you.
Let's just have a quick look at, so we've just whizzed through those as you were talking. Let's just have a quick look at the upper quartile. So I'm just going to probably go anything over, I don't know, let's go 800, we'll go 500,000. Okay, so just have a quick look. Yeah, okay, no, there you go, we'll go 600,000. Okay, so it looks like Miller Evans, which were they anywhere? Let's just have a quick look.
Yeah, they were near the top on the last one.
Yeah, they were, but it looks like Miller Evans. You guys seem to be the daddies when it comes to and again Cooper Green Pokes again. Interesting.
Samuel Wood and Monks have crept in there as
Oh,
well, and Roger Parry. And I think that's the difference there. That's just showing that type of agent that can actually get out to the other areas and make sure they can cater for the clients at different price points.
indeed. And again, let's just have a quick look at this. This is the number of listings per month. And you can quite clearly see here that on average, so we'll take May for an example, 23 properties came on the market above 600 grand, and now 22 in 22, and this month 41. So again, if you're a Shrewsbury agent and some say, well, why is it important to get the pricing? Well, look, nearly double the number of houses that are coming on the market. Now let's just have a quick look at the sales agreed, and again, there you go, the other way around. So on average, look at May, on average 23, 24 houses were selling and 15. So again, if you're an estate agent, you can use this information, be the property gurus, and say, look, Mrs. Miggins, who with your other, if you're going to put on an extra 50 grand, you can't, because here's the stats. Look at the stats. A picture tells 1,000 words. I know it's corny as hell, but it does do that, mate, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Look, you're 100% right on that, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this will probably go, "We know," but how many people are explaining it? And I mean, when you're especially at that 600,000, I would say 750 plus, people think very differently on what they're going to be spending. When you go into your £1 million, you're going to be going into your estates in the Shrewsbury area, probably farmlands as well. Land there, and there's going to be a lot more red tape around that, getting that through, from the conveyancing point and your title searches, etc. So you will naturally see some drop-offs there, and it'll take longer to sell. But if you're charging the right fee as an agent, you don't mind it taking longer, because it will all be worth it in the end, because you're getting paid the right fee for the right amount of work that you're doing.
Good stuff. Right. So this is just showing stock. And you can quite clearly see that in July 2021, there were 817 properties in the 5 postcodes. Okay, 905 in July last year, and this 1,326.
Is there something happening in Shrewsbury I'm not aware about?
Why is this?
Is everyone wanting to move out the area all of a sudden?
This is pretty normal for most of the UK at the moment. Basically, it's all very good looking at listings. It's all very good looking at sales, but the just general stock levels are an important consideration. And again, we're putting month by month, but if you actually put that into a linear graph, you would see a sizable jump. So again, I'd hate, if this started getting up here, then we'd have problems.
It'd be a bit of a panic.
Okay. And again, let's just have a quick look, just for what's names and giggles. Let's just have a quick look at the posh end. And again, there you go. So again, if I was an estate agent and, the number of properties over 750,000 in Shrewsbury, 34 in 21, 48, and now 100.
See, now it doesn't shock me now now we've broke it down more. So before it did, now we've gone in and it's way over. It doesn't shock me, because it is an older area from that. I actually go in the motorhome quite a lot to Shrewsbury. And when you end up going onto the outskirts, you do see the bigger properties. So I would expect the older clientele now are getting to a point that they are going, you know what, it is time to sell and move on. It will take longer to sell, without a shadow of a doubt, and there'll be less transactions on it. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I think you'll see that in a lot of countryside sales, from that. And as I say, Shrewsbury is a town. It is a town, yeah. It's quite small. You can walk around it relatively easily. Once you start to go further out, you're into your driving, and the SY5 area is quite big, for example. So.
Interestingly, this is the lower end, the lower quartile, and again, it's lower than it was in 22, which is the blue figure, but interestingly, there was more in 21. Just interesting. And then let's just have a quick look at the mid market, just for what's name and giggles. So we'll go 300. There we go. Again, quite pronounced there, very similar to the upper end market. So again, using this stats with your punters on your iPad, you can't just say there's more houses on the market. You can actually prove it as well.
Yeah.
So let's move on, and we are now looking at my favorite graph. So here we go. We'll start off here. So we are talking July 21 to July 23 compared to July 20. No, sorry, start again. We're looking at July 22 to July 23. How many houses have come on the market compared to July 21 to July 22, and the number of houses that come on the market is 10.3% more. So therefore, if you are at if you are at Monks, you've held your own. So I think it's important. We've grown. Monks say we've grown our market share by, or Halls, we've grown our market share by 8.1%. Yeah, nice one, guys. But that's actually lower than what the market's grown. So nice work on Zaza, Johnson and Bath. They've gone, and Holland and Broadbridge 22. Okay, so we're going to ignore new instructions, new instruction market share. We're going to ignore sold with the contracts. We're going to ignore fallen throughs, and we're going to ignore price changes. Although interesting, they look pretty. We'll just have a quick look. They look very similar. I can't see. Is there any corporates in there? I'm not. And I know you've got Taylor Wimpey in there. We can, which are new homes, so we can ignore them a second. But there's no one really in there.
There's none of the red names, if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, DB Roberts. They're not. They're an independent agent.
They're an independent agent.
Okay. Miller Evans. Do we know them?
Independent, as far as I'm aware.
Okay, so isn't that interesting that there's no big corporates? There's no your Connell sequences or your. Yeah, interesting. There you go. That's an opportunity. Well spotted.
Who's Emu on by these days? Is that
well, they're a franchise operation through the Martin & Co network, so therefore they're still an independent estate agent, just using a franchise name. So I consider them independent because the person on the ground is independent and not a corporate and not an employee. My apologies to anyone who is if there's a corporate in there and I don't see it. My apologies, but I don't recognise anything. So, but interestingly, what we find with the corporates is that the price change percentages are much higher. But anyway, here we go, James. I know you know this before. We're going to crack on again. Estate agents are there to move people, aren't they? You'd agree with that statement?
Yes.
Obviously, for the best price, the shortest possible, with a time frame that fits it, with the least amount of hassle, with a fair fee. But ultimately, the house has got to sell, and this is where the magic happens. Okay, a property will only leave an estate agency if she exchanges or withdraws. You agree with that statement?
Pretty much.
Right. So therefore, for every 100 houses that Cooper, Green and Pooks put on the market, they will exchange contracts on 68.5 and 31.4 will leave. Okay. So the bigger the number on the exchanges, the greater the chance of selling. Now, here we go. Look how tight those numbers are.
It's competitive.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. So
you said before when I said this area is a real competitive area.
Very much so. So the average for Shrewsbury in the last year is Shrewsbury, or whatever you want to call it, pardon me, is 61.45%. So if I was move, I mean, they're in the top 10, they're the big daddios. So if my marketing ploy, if I was move, would be, hey, if you've got a greater chance of selling, we're your people. You've got some people in the 60s. Now, this is really nice to see. I mean, Miller Evans at 71. You've got Halls.
I was going to say Halls seem to be doing pretty well there if you look at that.
Yeah. And exchange. So again, that's quite nice. I mean, normally the biggest estate agent tends to suffer on exchange level. But look at
Miller Evans. Look at Miller Evans. Miller Evans 25%.
Yeah. Yeah, so there you go. Not bad at all, boys and girls. But again, you can use this information to prove that you are worth your pennies. I don't think there's anything else there. We've already done new instructions and sold with the contracts. Let's move on and look at this, which is what would you actually achieve for the property. So what happens is this. So the way this software works is that they will look at, so in this instance, they'll look at all of the Cooper, Green, Pooks 481 properties, and they will give an automated valuation model or a Valpal figure. It's not a Valpal figure, but we'll use state agency language for this, and work out what did you actually put the house on the market for. And on average, Cooper. So this is almost like your overvaluing figure, which you've got to put a bit of fat in the mix there. So therefore, Cooper, Green, Pooks 1.2% over what the AVM model considers it worth. Nice and tight here. Zaza Johnson at 0.87 shows that they value quite tight. Stratton Park, I would expect a big figure like that simply because posh houses, you tend to have a bit more fat in the game. There's nothing on Taylor Wimpey because it's new homes. So again, interestingly, that the agents that seem to, should we say, put the fuller prices on, Roger Parry and Partners and Monks. Okay. Now we then come and talk about what price did you achieve off your original asking price. And we can quite clearly see that Monks get hit the highest at 3.52 and Holland and Broadbridge at 3.47. So, but then that's all dependent on what you put the market, what you put it on the market for. So what they do is this: instead of messing about with percentages, they say, right, if everyone put the same £350,000 house on the market, what would they achieve for it? And here we go. Cooper, Green and Pooks would sell that house for 343, Holland and Broadbridge 341, Miller and Evans 346, Zaza, Johnson and Bath 344, Monks 345, DP Roberts 344. These are really tight, aren't they?
This must be one of the closest ones you've ever done.
Very much so. Samuel Wood at 345, Halls 347. Now, Roger Parry 363. That's nice. Okay. So again, if I was Roger Parry, I could say, Mrs. Miggins, the reason you should come on with me is I'm going to get you more money. Interesting. Yeah. But these are really tight. Really, really tight. Okay. So well done for all you guys, because normally if you are number one or number two, these can get hit quite hard. So again, if I was Cooper Greens are going up against Holland Broadbridge, I could actually say I will get you £1,000 or £1,200, because the difference between those two figures, more than your competitor. Okay. Miller Evans, well, they're going to get £5,000 more, or 4,900. So if they're off, again, the wonderful thing about this piece of kit is this: when you're trying to get an extra £1,000, this proves that you can get an extra £4,000 if your numbers stack up.
Yep.
Okay. Anything to say before we move on?
Yep, let's go for it.
Okay. How quickly do agents sell their houses? And we can quite clearly see that the agent who actually gets the houses away quickest is Belvoir. Well done there. That's what we like to see, Belvoir. Nice touch there. Holland and Broadbridge, 160 days. DB Roberts, 161. Let's just have a quick reminder of Cooper, Green and Pooks. Where are they? 179. So you can, this is new instruction.
But isn't it ridiculous though, as well, isn't it, when you think about 5 to 6 months?
Yeah. So look, on average, it takes 54 days in the last year to get a property from new instruction to sale agreed, and 121 days.
And what's changed? Because nothing's actually changed in regards to.
Well, tell about you. Okay. You know, those of us with grey hair, which is you and I obviously use Grecian 2000. He said, I might say with a chink in my eye. At least we've got some hair though, mate. Is I can remember when 6 to 8 weeks was considered the normal. Can you remember? Can you remember those days?
I do. I just think conveyancers have a lot to answer for. I get slated all the time for this when I attack them for this, but nothing's changed in our market. We are like the dying dinosaurs, and everything else has evolved around us, really, apart from the estate agency world. Yes, we've got great prop tech like this now, they can bring it. But in regards to transactions and getting it through to the finishing line, when we get paid, so we are still one of the only industries now still in England and Wales today that we only get paid once the job's finished, you know, altogether, is that it's just ridiculous it's taken this long. Why is it took longer and longer? Even from, as you said, even if you went back a few years back, it would have been still less. So it's got worse. Now, is that an estate agent's fault, or is it conveyancer's fault?
Well, there's a lot of things happening in the background. They're not very good at marketing themselves, but trust me, boys and girls, there are people out there that are trying to sort this out, but it is like trying to herd cats. One of the things that I'm particularly impressed with is Property Mark with what they're doing. And also the home buying and selling group run by Kate Faulkner is something that are actually trying to, should we say, align the stars. But again,
it needs to be more digital. And I know it sounds hard.
No, that's what they're doing. They are bringing everyone together. But if you don't bring everyone along, then you'll get people left off the bus.
And it is, I will say this, it is difficult because we are, you know, we probably have probably the biggest sort of transaction levels. You know, if you had to look at details worldwide on a housing market, you know, we can go into depth, you know, right back where a lot of areas you can't. It's hidden away. You're not going to find out. People are not as fixatious on, you know, if you looked at where I am today, they're not bothered about all these stats here in Spain on it. It's just about, if you want to buy a property, that's what it's going to cost you today, and that's it, and you're going to buy it. They won't go into this sort of in depth. But you take Dubai, like estate agents love to go to Dubai. We see it all the time. Now, yes, it's artificial, it's new. They had that blank piece of paper, and it's all digital. You can do everything virtually on an app on your phone, to do it all. I can't believe with the amount of money that we spend in the UK, and I say I do understand we have our old housing market stock, but we could start to make, especially on the newer homes or stuff that's been built within the last 10 years from now. So from 2013, a lot of that stuff will be digitalized already to speed up conveyancing very, very fast. And that'll be good all round. We'll stop seeing estate agents going out of business. You'll stop seeing staff leaving because they're not earning the money that they thought they could earn. And unfortunately, if you do have people watching this that are not from the estate agents world, it's a sales game. You get paid commission for doing well, and so you should. You are spending a lot of time. You probably earn at the moment more for selling a car than what you do for selling a house.
Hang on. Let's finish off with lettings. Now
I
again,
sounded very passionate then. I obviously think about it more while I'm on holiday.
it must be the sangria, mate. So this is interesting. The average rent in Shrewsbury in 2021, it's just having a think about it now, bless it. Whilst we're waiting for that to come up through, so we can see Cooper Green and Pook seem to be the daddios when it comes to new listings for rental. Monk's very, very. Have you noticed that the big agents in sales are the same big agents in lettings? That is again unheard of. So this is interesting. So the average rent in 21, 768, and today
UK picture. Well, obviously we already talked about England and Wales, don't we? But that'll be the same around England and Wales. It is unfortunate that rents are jumping. As much. Yes, unfortunately, that's going to have a lot to do with landlords wanting to increase rent because obviously they need to. They've got mortgages, but not all landlords do. Some are cash buyers.
Well, interestingly, that 64% of rental properties, the landlord, even on renewal, keeps it the same or reduces.
Yeah, there's not many, a lot of landlords are not greedy landlords. I know they have this saying that landlords are greedy. They're not. They want to provide a good property, at the right price within market. And that's the nice thing about it. If the rental market goes down, the likelihood is your rent will come down, obviously, after the end of your contract. If it goes up, it goes up. So you are in a nice, you are quite nice there where don't forget, when you're buying a house, you have your mortgage. You've got to pay it no matter what. So if the market was going down, you still got to pay your same mortgage no matter what. On a rental market, if you've got after your 11, 12 months, that's it. If it's dropped, it's unlikely, unfortunately, but if it dropped, then you could be requesting less. And you do find landlords a lot willing to help. We saw that in 2020. A lot of landlords instantly, when they were contacted by the letting agents and saying, look, people have been furloughed, they're on 80% pay, a lot of landlords agreed to do 80%. And I think, landlords get too much bashing all the time, and it should be recognised that without them, the UK property market, or England and Wales especially, would be in a very, very dire place.
100% agree. Final thoughts for the estate and letting agents watching this with what you've seen so far this with regard to the stats this week, James?
Chin up. It's not all doom and gloom. There is obviously if you want to build up your social media presence, then go out and quote it all, but then you probably won't have an agency to run because people will sit and wait then for these drops to happen that you keep hearing about. Why would you sell your property now if you're telling them the prices are going to drop dramatically in years to come? Or in the next 6 months or so. I think the difference is your marketing's got to be spot on. Like you said before, not everyone likes purple bricks because of the model, but they did come out with a lot of good things. One, they get paid up front. I think that's great. Just not enough. Two, obviously local property expert. They were the ones creating it. A lot of us all spoke about it and we all did it, but they had the money and the resources to put it out there in the market. Now, do clients always listen to this? Absolutely not. They won't. But it's your job as an agent. Sometimes you've got to. I put a social media post out the other day and saying sometimes you've got to take sacrifices to succeed. I've been slated. I'm arrogant. Every name under the sun I've been called by. I don't really care because you have to make sacrifices. People read into things wrongly. A sacrifice might be, and I'm not endorsing it like you. I don't get it, but the 2020 software. I'm currently speaking to them at the moment because I do like the software. It gives a lot of stats, and I'm looking at it for my guys and girls to sort of say, look, when you go to your instructions and you've got your iPad and you are competing against, unfortunately, some of the corporates who will do fixed fees. They'll drop their pants just to win it and overvalue. We all know how it all works. They can go, but look at the evidence. This is live.
Independent.
Yeah. And that's the key thing. And sometimes that's a sacrifice. You might be looking at it going, it's a lot of money to go. I can't. I don't know what the prices are. I'm negotiating, but it's by email, so I haven't got them. But it might be a lot for the agents at the moment because again, when we're spending 5 or 6 months waiting for a sale to go through, and then we get paid, you know, on this, it's a lot of money you've got. But sometimes you've got to look at it and go, right, well, is it worth doing that? You know, are you getting out with your blogs? Are you in, you know, advising newspapers? They might go, they don't want to listen to you. We'll keep hitting them over and over again.
Well, you should know that you're in the press, and you know, I know for a fact that, you know, for everyone, that you're not going to get it published, but you've just got to be the voice of your local property market.
It takes a lot. It does take a lot. Don't get me wrong. And I am in the press a lot. Not for not always good news. You know, the good news doesn't work. Unfortunately, they want the bad news, so you have to have a twist on it. You know, you have to have your fancy headlines. Yes, it'll rub people up the wrong way sometimes, but the difference is it gets them to read it. It gets you in front of people. Then the real work starts because it's like a CV. A CV is just to get you through the door. That's what your marketing's about, you know, to get into the door until you're sitting face to face. You know, if you looked at them prices, I can't remember them, but what was it, 350,000, I think, for S1 to S5 on average there. You know, it's a lot of money, you know, for someone that's their biggest asset. We always talk about this, but I think sometimes as estate agents, we do take it to granted when we talk about these numbers. It's like, oh yeah, it's 350 grand. So what? It's a lot of money, you know, from that. It's our job to show people how professional we actually are, to take us out the top 5 at least trusted professions and start to put us at the top. And I agree with you with Property Mark, you know, on that. I think they're doing a great job on it. We are actually now applying for our license. We now want to be, you know, effectively, we want to put ourselves forward to be regulated in an unlicensed world, you know, on this. And I think it's an agent's choice to do it. But I think the more of us who get together, the more of us who start to sing the same hymn tune, the better this industry will go. The better fees you will earn. So don't forget, you want to earn more fees. You've got a business to run. You have to make a profit to go forward. And it will get rid of some of the unscrupulous agents, or the bad agents, let's just call them. The heat's getting to me. The bad agents in the area, and become professionals. There's enough out there. Yes, stock's tight, but going forward, the stats are showing that we're just going over that curve now, and it should start to go more positive. Just the worry is stock. And I think that's what it is, Chris. We're all saying the same. House builders are all the same. It's all about stock, you know, getting in the materials for what they can do to get it out there. It's stock. That's all we need. But people have got to look at it. If you want to sell, well, there's no, you know, you weren't better off, you know, 5 or 6 weeks ago than what you are now. You're still right. You know, do you wait another 9 months? Well, what are you waiting for? You know, if you need to sell, speak to the agent, get 3 around, go with who you like the best, who's presenting you with all the evidence, not the one who's got the gift of the gab and all the patter, the one who is showing you in SY to SY5, so in between them postcodes as we've covered, exactly who's the best in that area based on everything that they're showing you.
James, thank you very much for your insight. That's the end of week 30 for the UK Property Market Stats Show. Next week will be week 31, where, all being well, Brian Mansell will be joining us. He's back on the couch. James, I look forward to, all being well, seeing you in the autumn, where
Yes.
you'll be jumping back on. I always love your insight. Most importantly, thank you for watching the UK Property Market Stats Show. And we'll see you next week. Thanks very much.
See you, everyone.